really glad you're here tonight. This hour is different from the rest of the day. It doesn't ask you to decide anything. It doesn't ask you to perform or explain or keep up. It simply invites you to lie still and let your thoughts move at their own pace. As the years pass, nighttime becomes a kind of companion, a place where the mind is free to wander without interruption, where memories return, not urgently but patiently, where understanding settles in quietly, without needing words. Later in life, the mind doesn't race the way it once did. It reflects, it revisits, it connects dots that once seemed unrelated. And it does this most honestly when the lights are off and the world has gone silent. This space is for those thoughts, the ones that don't surface during the day, the ones that arrive only when you're alone with yourself, resting, remembering, and gently making sense of a long lived-in life. So take a slow breath. Let your body soften into the bed and allow this night to meet you where you are. Before we begin, if this kind of honest, gentle reflection speaks to you, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. And down in the comments, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is where you are right now. There's something comforting about knowing we're all here together, scattered across time zones, but united in these late hours when the world finally grows still. So settle in, adjust your pillows, find a comfortable position, and know that for the next hour, you're not alone in whatever wisdom you're carrying, whatever understanding you've earned, whatever truths rise to the surface when the lights go out. Let's begin. You are awake right now when most of the world is not. There's a reason for that. Not insomnia, necessarily. Not restlessness, though sometimes those visit too. But something quieter than either of those things. Something more intentional. You are awake because part of you knows that late night is one of the few places left in the day where no one is asking anything of you, where the phone has gone silent, where the obligations of the afternoon have been folded away, where the noise, both the external kind and the relentless internal kind, has finally settled enough to let you hear yourself think. You are awake right now in the way that only people who have lived a certain number of years can truly be awake. Not frantically, not anxiously, but with a kind of quiet, open awareness, a stillness behind the eyes, a softness in the chest, the kind of wakefulness that doesn't demand anything of the next moment, that doesn't push anywhere in particular, that simply rests in the present, the way water rests in a still pond at the end of a long, windless evening. And in this particular wakefulness, something rises, something that the daytime never quite allows room for, something that can only be called gratitude. But not the gratitude of greeting cards, not the gratitude that makes polished lists of blessings and ticks them off proudly before moving on to the next task. Something older than that, deeper than that, quieter than that. The kind of gratitude that has no words, but sits in the body like warmth, like a hand resting gently on your chest, like the long, slow exhale after a day that asked a great deal, and you gave it anyway. This is where you are, right now, in the quiet, in the late hour, in the gratitude that only comes when the world has stopped long enough to let you actually feel it. Don't rush it. Don't name it yet. Just notice that it's there. Notice that it has been there all along. underneath the busy hours and the noise and the motion of your day. It didn't arrive with the darkness. It was simply waiting for the darkness to make it visible. You remember a time when late nights were about something entirely different. When you were young, late nights were borrowed time. They were the hours you stole from sleep because the world felt too full of possibility to let go of consciousness. You stayed up because something might happen, because the conversation wasn't finished yet, because the person you wanted to be near was still awake, because sleep felt like surrender, and you weren't ready to surrender to anything. You remember those nights, the raw energy of them, the way your body could override exhaustion completely when something more important demanded its attention, the way 2 a.m. felt like an opportunity rather than an imposition, the way you laughed louder then, talked faster, believed more completely that time was endless and that nothing important had been missed yet, and everything was still ahead, still possible, still perfectly intact. You remember nights in your younger years when you sat in kitchens with people you loved and talked about everything, about life and meaning and what you were going to do and who you were going to become. The cups were refilled and the hours disappeared, and nobody glanced at the clock because the clock simply didn't matter in those rooms. What mattered was the conversation, the connection, the feeling of being young and alive and at the very beginning of something that hadn't yet shown you its shape. Those nights were their own kind of gratitude, though you didn't call it that then. You called it fun. You called it friendship. You called it simply being alive and having people to be alive with. But underneath all of it was something you can only recognize now, from this distance, with this much living behind you. It was gratitude for aliveness itself, for belonging somewhere, for being exactly the right age, in exactly the right room, with exactly the people you needed around you in that particular season of your life. You couldn't see it clearly then because you were inside it completely. Now you can see it with perfect clarity because you're looking back from somewhere further along. And what you see is beautiful. What you see is a young person who was fully alive without even trying, who was so present that presence required no effort, who had no idea how rare that would eventually feel. This is one of the quiet gifts of late nights at this stage of life. You can look back and finally understand what you were living through in those earlier years. You can see all those younger late nights for what they truly were, not just youth and energy and noise, but moments of unguarded, unrecognized connection, moments of being completely, carelessly present, moments of living so fully that not one breath was wasted, even if you didn't know to be grateful for them at the time. And now, you lie here in this late night, which is so different from those, and you feel something settle into place. A peace that comes from having lived through all the other kinds of nights and arrived at this one. This quiet one. This one that doesn't need anything to happen. This one that is entirely complete exactly as it is. Think about what it actually took to get to this night. Not just physically, not just the accumulated years of waking up and going to sleep and waking up again, but everything else, every choice you made at a crossroads when you couldn't see where either path was leading, every wrong turn that turned out in the end to be precisely right. Every fear you walked toward instead of away from. Every time you kept going when stopping would have been infinitely easier, and no one would have blamed you if you had. Think about the nights when you didn't know if you'd make it through. Not always dramatically, not always in the way that sounds significant when described to someone else. But the quiet, private nights when the weight of your life felt too heavy for one person to carry alone. When you lay in a bed not so different from this one and couldn't imagine how the morning would be any different from the night. When the sadness was so complete, it felt like weather. Like something you lived inside rather than something that would eventually pass through you and move on. You made it through those nights. Every single one of them. Every last one. That is not a small thing. That is not ordinary or unremarkable or something to move past quickly. That is a life being lived with a tenacity you have never given yourself nearly enough credit for. You kept getting up. Day after day, you kept going. You kept showing up for the people who needed you and for the work that required you and for the version of life that was quietly waiting on the other side of every hard night you survived. And those hard nights, as terrible as they were, while you were inside them, were doing something to you that nothing easier could have done. They were building something, a depth of character that cannot be manufactured in comfortable years, a capacity for compassion that only comes from having been on the floor yourself and knowing, not intellectually, but in your actual body, what it requires to rise from it, an understanding of what other people carry silently behind their ordinary faces and their ordinary days, that you now recognize because you have carried it too. The hard nights made you more generous with others and more patient with yourself. They carved out space in you that didn't exist before. And you only understand the full value of this now. You only feel the gratitude for this particular transformation now. Not for the pain itself, but for the person the pain produced, for the wisdom it deposited somewhere permanent inside you, quiet and steady and available, like a light that was installed in the difficult years and has never been switched off since. You feel that now. That hard-won, deeply earned, entirely yours wisdom. You feel it in the way you listen differently than you used to, in the way a crisis doesn't consume you the way it once did, in the way you can set a worry down at night and trust that morning will bring perspective that midnight thinking never can. You've learned at a level that goes beyond understanding into the body itself, that very few things are as urgent as they feel in the dark. You know this because you lived long enough to learn it. That is the only way it can be learned. Think about today specifically. Not yesterday, not tomorrow, just today. Think about one moment from this particular day that was simply good. It doesn't have to be significant. It doesn't need to be something worth telling anyone about or recording anywhere. It just has to be real. A single moment when something, however quiet and however small, was right. Maybe it was the first cup of something warm in the morning, the way it smelled before you tasted it, the particular weight of the cup in your hands, the specific quality of the early morning before the day had declared its intentions and made its demands. If you are a person who has learned to truly appreciate that first drink of the morning, there is a complete and private world of simple pleasure in it, a gratitude so embodied that the body already knows how to feel it without being instructed. Maybe it was a conversation, something brief, an exchange with someone that took no more than a few minutes but left you feeling, however quietly, that being connected to other people is the easiest and most natural thing in the world, that the world, at its best and most every day, is full of people who are mostly decent and mostly trying and mostly willing to be kind if given the smallest opportunity. Maybe it was something you saw, the light falling at a particular angle this afternoon, the way the clouds were arranged at some point during the day, a bird landing somewhere unexpected, a color in the sky that stopped you mid-step because it was too particular, too unrepeatable to walk past without acknowledging. Maybe it was something you cannot name at all, just a moment when the day's resistance lifted slightly and something passed through you that felt like ease, like you were, for just a second, exactly where you were supposed to be, like life wasn't asking anything of you for that one brief instant. These small moments, these are the actual texture of a life, not the milestones, not the events that get commemorated and photographed and referenced for decades afterward. The actual living texture of a life is made of these tiny instances of pleasure and peace and unexpected beauty that occur in every ordinary day, whether or not anyone pauses to notice them. Most days they pass unacknowledged. The day moves too quickly. The mind is too occupied. The next thing demands attention before the last thing has been fully felt. But in the late night, they return. The small goods of the day drift back to the surface. The moment with the warm cup, the brief conversation, the light on the clouds, they become visible in the stillness in a way they weren't during the hours when they were happening. You are noticing them now, from the perspective of someone who has lived long enough to understand their value, who has learned gradually and with some difficulty that the ordinary days are the ones that compose everything, that a life made of ordinary days with their small goods and their manageable difficulties and their brief moments of something that felt quietly like enough is not a lesser life. It is, in fact, the only life. It is what life actually is, stripped of the extraordinary moments that we spend so much energy waiting for. This is the quiet gratitude, not for the exceptional, for the ordinary, for today which happened, which held its small goods, which is now complete and cannot be taken from you. There is a particular quality to the gratitude of late nights that is unlike any other kind. It is not the gratitude of abundance. It doesn't require anything to be going especially well. It doesn't need a recent victory, a piece of good news, a reason that someone else could identify and validate. It exists independently of circumstances. It rises up through the ordinary, through the familiar, through the simple fact of being here at the end of this particular day, breathing, warm, still present in the world. You notice things at night that disappear entirely in daylight. Small things, the sound the house makes as it settles into the cooler air, the particular quality of the silence in your room right now, a silence that is completely specific to this place and this hour. The temperature of the air on the parts of your face not covered by warmth. The faint sounds of the world outside, whatever that world is from where you are. Traffic somewhere at a distance. Wind moving through something. An occasional sound of life continuing somewhere out there while you rest inside it. These sounds don't feel like interruptions in the night. They feel like company, like quiet proof that the world is still out there, still turning, still continuing in all its unremarkable, reliable constancy. And you are resting inside it, safe, held, not required to participate in it for these few hours. You feel grateful for the sounds of the night, for what they represent without saying anything, for the world that keeps existing even in the hours when you've stepped away from it. You feel grateful for the darkness itself. Not everyone reaches this peace with the dark. Some people fill it with screens and brightness because the quiet makes them uneasy. But you've made your peace with it over the years. You've learned that darkness is not absence. It is presence. It is full, not empty. Full of rest and stillness and the particular clarity of your own thoughts when they are not competing with stimulation and noise and the endless demands of the lit world. You earned this peace with the dark. It didn't arrive automatically or early. There were years when the night felt like an adversary, when the darkness amplified fear and sadness and the particular, ungentle quality of a mind that has turned its full attention on itself, with no distractions to soften the examination. You remember those years. You lived inside them, and somewhere along the way, without noticing the precise moment of transition, the dark became something different, something restful, something you could lean into rather than resist. This shift, this quiet transformation in your relationship with the night, this is one of the most understated gifts of having lived this long. Nobody names it. It doesn't appear on any list of reasons that growing older carries grace. But it is real, and it is yours, and you feel it right now in the ease with which you are lying here. Not afraid, not braced, simply present in the darkness and, in your own quiet way, grateful for it. There are people you're thinking of tonight. There always are, in this hour. The late night has a way of bringing the people you love into clear and tender focus. Not because anything is wrong, not because something needs to be resolved or said or fixed, but simply because this is the hour when everything else has receded and the love you carry can move through you without anything blocking its way. Someone comes to mind right now. A face, a name, a specific memory that has no particular occasion, just the way someone looked at you once, or the sound of their laugh, or the particular way they said your name that nobody else has ever quite replicated. Maybe it's someone you spoke to just today. Maybe it's someone distant, geographically or in time. Maybe it's someone who has died and whose presence in these late hours is so vivid that it feels less like memory and more like visitation. Think about what that person gave you. Not in material ways, but in the deeper ways that don't have simple names. The way certain conversations with them rearrange something permanently in how you understood yourself or the world. The way their presence in your life, however long or however brief, left a deposit in you that is still earning interest. That will always be there. that nothing, not time or distance or loss, can remove. Think about the friendships that have lasted, the ones that have survived everything your lives have thrown at them. The transitions and the silences and the periods when you both had so little left over that there was nothing to offer each other except the quiet understanding that you were still there, still choosing each other in whatever small ways the season allowed. Those friendships are a particular kind of miracle, not dramatic, not the kind that announces itself, but the quiet miracle of two people who have continued to choose each other across years and change and the inevitable drifting that life performs on everyone. That choice, repeated silently over time, is one of the deepest forms of love that exists. You feel grateful tonight for the ones who stayed, not because they were perfect, not because the friendship was always easy or the relationship always smooth, but because they were real, because there was enough truth between you to survive the imperfect seasons, because both of you understood, without having to say it, that what you had was worth the effort of maintenance, and you feel something for the ones who didn't stay too, something softer than grief, something that has processed and settled and arrived at a place of quiet recognition. Those connections were real as well. They mattered as well. They gave you things you still carry without always knowing their origin. And their ending, as painful as it was, moved you forward into the life you ended up building. Nothing is wasted. This is a late-night understanding. Every person who passed through your life altered something. Every relationship, the long and the brief, the loving and the difficult, is part of the architecture of who you are lying here tonight. And who you are is someone shaped by love in every form it took. Someone who has been loved imperfectly and has loved imperfectly in return and has learned through the accumulated evidence of a lifetime that imperfect love is still love, that it still counts, that it still made you who you are. The night is settling deeper now. You can feel it. The house has grown quieter still. The sounds outside have thinned. The world has moved further into sleep, and you are resting at the edge of it, still gently conscious, still present, still here in this room, in this body, in this life that has brought you to this exact, unremarkable, entirely sufficient moment. Your body has been so faithful to you. Sit with that for a moment. Think about everything this body has done, the illnesses it fought without being asked, the injuries it quietly repaired while you slept, the decades of physical work it performed, the places it carried you, the people it held, the meals it tasted, the mornings it got up when getting up was the last thing it wanted to do and did it anyway because you needed it to, and it had never let you down. This body is your oldest companion. It has been with you without interruption for every single moment of your life. It never left. It never abandoned you, even in the seasons when you weren't particularly kind to it, even when you pushed it past reasonable limits or ignored what it was telling you or judged it harshly against standards it never agreed to meet. There were years when you were at odds with this body, years when it felt like an obstacle or an embarrassment or something to be managed rather than inhabited. You know which years those were. You remember the particular quality of that low-level background dissatisfaction, the way you moved through the world slightly at war with the body you were moving through it in. But something changed. Gradually, without ceremony, something shifted. The war quieted. The judgment softened. You began to see this body less as something to be corrected and more as something to be appreciated. Something that had been doing its best all along. Something that had, frankly, earned a great deal more gratitude than it had ever received. You feel that gratitude now, in the dark, in the warmth of the bed, with your body finally allowed to stop and rest. You feel it in the simple awareness of your breath, in and out, steady, automatic, the body doing what it has done every moment of your entire life without ever once asking for acknowledgement. Feel that breath now, in and out, the same breath you have taken every day of your life. Different air, same lungs. Different years, same steady heartbeat beneath everything. The breath that was there at your very beginning and has not stopped since. The breath that asks nothing of you except that you allow it to continue. You're alive tonight, in the late hours, in the quiet room, in this body that has served you faithfully across all the years of your living, that is breathing right now, that is warm right now, that is here. Let that be enough for this moment. Let the miracle of simply being here, breathing, warm, present, be the entirety of what is required right now. Because it is entirely enough. It is, in its own quiet way, everything. The first half of this night belongs to remembering, to tracing the shape of the life you've lived with gentle hands, to noticing what the dark and the quiet reveal when the day has finally finished its demands. You've moved through memory and through gratitude, and through the particular honesty that only the late hours can produce. You felt the weight of the years and found it lighter than expected, more meaningful than it sometimes appears in the busy daylight, more worth carrying than you sometimes believe when the carrying feels heavy. The echoes of everything you've lived are here in this room with you tonight, not loudly, not insistently, but present, the way the scent of something beloved lingers long after the thing itself has gone, long after the room has changed, long after everything else has shifted. They are yours. Every memory, every person, every version of yourself that got you to this version, every hard night you survived, and every quiet night like this one that offered rest you needed more than you knew. Let your breathing slow a little more now. Let the thoughts become less sharp and more soft. Let the images drift rather than march. Let the gratitude settle into the body rather than the mind, where it will do its most useful work while you sleep. You are held tonight by the dark, by the quiet, by everything you've lived and everything you've loved and everything you've learned across the years of your being here. Rest in this now. The second half of the night is coming, and it has more to give you. But for this moment, simply rest. Simply be here. Simply breathe. You are still here. Still breathing. Still present. Still held by this particular darkness in this particular room at this particular hour. that belongs entirely and completely to you. The first half of this night, move through memory, through the years that built you, through the people who shaped you, through the hard nights you survived and the quiet gifts they left behind, through the body that has carried you faithfully across every single day of your living, through the ordinary moments of today that the late hour returned to you, softened and visible in ways they weren't while they were happening. All of that is still here with you, settled now, gentle now, not demanding your attention, but simply present, the way everything true about you is always present underneath the surface, composing the person you actually are. And now the night moves into something different, something quieter still, something that isn't quite memory and isn't quite thought, but exists in the space between the two. The space where understanding lives without needing language, where knowing arrives not as an idea but as a feeling, as a settling, as the particular peace that comes when you have finally stopped explaining yourself, even to yourself, and simply allowed yourself to be. This is where you are now, in the deeper portion of the night, in the space after remembering and before sleep, in the quiet that is not empty but full, full of everything you are and everything you've been and everything that the long arc of your life has been quietly, patiently building toward. Stay here for a while. There is nowhere else to be. There is something nobody tells you about getting older. They tell you about the physical things, the ways the body changes, the aches that arrive uninvited and stay past the point of welcome, the morning stiffness, the need for more sleep, and then paradoxically, the difficulty achieving it. They tell you about the losses, the friends who go, the family members who leave before you're ready, the version of yourself you eventually have to set down because life has moved you forward, whether or not you are finished being that person. But nobody tells you about the gratitude. Nobody warns you that somewhere along the way, if you're paying any attention at all, the ordinary details of a day will begin to carry a weight of beauty that they simply didn't carry when you were younger. That the light through a window in the late afternoon will stop you in your tracks, not because anything special is happening, but because you are awake enough now, experienced enough now, to recognize that this light is remarkable, that this window, this afternoon, this particular arrangement of the ordinary world is something that has never existed before and will never exist again in precisely this form. Nobody tells you that you will develop a gratitude for small pleasures so complete that it almost embarrasses you, that a garden in any season will move you, that a meal shared with someone you love will feel on certain evenings like the answer to a question you didn't know you were asking. That music you've heard 100 times will suddenly crack something open in your chest that leaves you briefly undone in the very best way. Nobody tells you that you will begin to feel grateful for things you actively suffered through, not the suffering itself, but what the suffering produced, the patience it installed, the perspective it provided, the way it permanently rearranged your priorities so that you stopped spending energy on things that never deserved it and started spending it on things that had been waiting quietly for your full attention all along. And nobody tells you that the gratitude of late nights is its own particular category, its own specific quality of feeling. That lying in a dark room at the end of a day and simply being present for everything you've lived and everyone you've loved will become, in time, one of the most sustaining experiences available to you, one of the most honest, one of the most complete. You know this now. You are feeling it right now. And the fact that you know it, that you can feel it fully and recognize it for what it is itself something to be grateful for. The gratitude becoming grateful for itself. The circle completing, the loop closing gently in the dark. Think about the season of life you're in right now. Not with judgment, not with the anxious measuring of what should be different by now, or what didn't turn out the way you planned. Simply observe it, the way you would observe a landscape from a window, with curiosity, with the mild, open attention of someone who has stopped trying to change the view and started actually looking at it. This season has its particular quality. Like every season before it, it asks things of you that the earlier seasons didn't. It requires a different kind of courage than youth required. Not the courage to leap, to begin, to throw yourself forward into an unknown future with your whole heart and very little information, but a different courage. The courage to be still, the courage to release, the courage to let certain things be finished and to find peace with their completion rather than mourning the ending as a failure. You are learning this courage. You may not feel like you're learning it on the days when release feels less like wisdom and more like loss, but you are. Every time you set something down that no longer belongs to this season of your life, you are practicing one of the most difficult skills a person can develop. Every time you allow an expectation to dissolve back into the air it was made of, you are making room for something more honest in its place, something more truly yours, something that doesn't require you to perform a version of yourself that belonged to an earlier chapter. This season is also asking you to receive. This is harder than most people expect. Years of giving, of doing, of being the one who provides and manages and holds things together make receiving feel foreign, uncomfortable, even slightly threatening, as if accepting help is an admission of something that should be hidden rather than a natural and dignified part of being human. But receiving is its own form of grace. Allowing someone to care for you, to offer something, to show up for you the way you have spent years showing up for others is a gift to them as much as it is to you. It gives them the chance to be the kind of person they want to be. It lets them feel useful and loving and connected to you. It completes the circle that giving alone can never close. You are learning to receive the kindness of this season, to accept the help when it's offered with genuine warmth, to allow people to love you in the ways they need to love you, even when those ways are different from what you might have chosen, to say thank you and mean it fully without immediately returning the favor or deflecting the attention or minimizing what was given. This is part of the quiet gratitude of late nights, the recognition that you are not only a giver in this life, that you are also, and always have been, someone who is loved, someone whose presence matters to other people, not because of what you provide, but because of who you are, because of the particular quality of your attention when you give it, because of the specific warmth of your company, because of everything about you that cannot be quantified or earned or lost. You are someone who is loved tonight. Rest in that. The world outside this room is very large. Right now, as you lie here in the gentle dark, it is continuing everywhere. Cities are lit, oceans are moving. Somewhere it is just becoming morning, and someone is watching the very first light arrive above a horizon. Somewhere else, it is the middle of the afternoon, and someone is walking down a street they've walked 1,000 times, thinking about something they can't quite name. People are being born right now, in the hours you are resting. Somewhere, a first breath is being taken. Somewhere, a new person is arriving into the world, and a room is filling with the particular kind of awe that greets new life. Someone is holding that new person right now and feeling a love so enormous and so complete that it seems impossible their body can contain it. People are also leaving. This is true every hour. Somewhere someone is taking a last breath. Somewhere a life that stretched across decades is completing its final sentence. Someone is sitting beside that person, holding a hand, saying the things you say at the end, when all the earlier conversations have been had and only the essential remains. You live in this world. You are part of this enormous, continuous, unstoppable movement of life. Your particular life, in this particular room, in this particular body, is one thread in something so vast that no mind can fully hold its dimensions. And yet, your thread matters. Your single, specific, irreplaceable thread matters to the whole in ways you will never fully understand. This is one of the truths that the late night makes available. The simultaneous smallness and significance of a single human life. You are very small against the scale of what exists, and you are, at the same time, entirely specific and entirely essential. There is no other person who has lived your particular combination of moments, no other consciousness that has moved through the world with your precise quality of perception and feeling and understanding. You are singular. You are original. You are the only version of yourself that has ever existed or will ever exist. What you have lived cannot be unlived. What you have understood cannot be ununderstood. What you have loved cannot be taken back into unloved. The impressions you have made on the people around you are permanent. The kindnesses you offered that you have long since forgotten are still alive in the people who received them. The moment you said exactly the right thing to someone who needed it, even if you don't remember saying it, is still working inside that person in ways neither of you could track. Your life has been leaking goodness into the world this entire time. Even in the seasons when you felt like you were failing, even in the years when you couldn't see what you were contributing, even on the days when you felt invisible and unnecessary and unconvinced that your presence made any difference to anyone. It made a difference. It is making a difference. It will continue to make a difference in ways that will outlast your knowledge of them. Let that be the thing you rest on tonight. Not your accomplishments, though those are real. Not your failures, though those too were part of the pattern. But simply the fact that you have been here, that you have moved through the world with your particular quality of presence. that you have loved people and been changed by them and changed them in return and made the small, continuous, irreplaceable contribution of one fully lived human life. Your mind is moving more slowly now. You can feel it. The thoughts are becoming less sequential, less insistent. They are beginning to drift rather than march, to surface and dissolve rather than demand to be followed to their conclusions. This is the mind preparing for sleep. This is the beginning of the gentle dissolution that comes every night and takes you out of the day and into the other country of dreams. Let it come. Don't chase the thoughts that are drifting. Don't anchor yourself to the ones that feel unfinished. They will be there in the morning if they matter. The ones that truly matter always return. And the ones that don't return in the daylight were probably not worth following tonight. For now, simply observe the drift. Watch the mind become softer. Feel the edges of your thinking becoming less defined. Feel the distinction between what is memory and what is imagination and what is simply the mind moving freely through its own landscapes, beginning to blur in the most comfortable way. There are things you will do tomorrow. You know this. The day will arrive with its list and its demands and its particular version of needing you to be present and capable and engaged with the world. That is fine. You will meet it. You have met every day that has ever arrived before this one, and you will meet this one too, with whatever it brings and whatever it asks. But that is tomorrow. And tomorrow is not now. Now is this, the dark room, the warm stillness, the breath that moves steadily in and out without your assistance, the body releasing the last of the day's tension into the mattress, into the pillows, into the covers that hold you with a weight that feels, in this moment, like exactly the right amount of comfort. You have done enough today. Whatever it was, however much or little the day asked and you gave, it was enough. The day is finished. The account is closed. You are not required to review it, or revise it, or carry it forward into sleep. It happened. It is complete. It belongs now to the past, which is the safest place anything can be. Let it go now. Let the day set itself down beside you gently and grow still. It doesn't need you anymore tonight. It is finished with you, and you have finished with it. And between you, something was lived that was real and sufficient and worthy of the breath it took. Gratitude has a physical address in the body. You may not have known this when you were younger. Gratitude can feel abstract then, a concept, an instruction, something you're told to practice without being given specific directions on how to locate it in the actual geography of your actual body. But you know now. You've lived long enough to know where it lives, where to find it when you need it, how to access it even on the days when nothing about the day has made it easy or obvious. It lives in the chest, in the specific region of the chest that softens when something moves you, that gentle opening, that slight releasing of something that was held tight without your awareness. That is the physical address of gratitude. That is where it actually happens, not in the mind, which can only describe it, in the body, which simply feels it. Feel it now. Let the chest soften. Let whatever has been quietly held there today begin to release. There is no reason to keep holding it. The day is over. The performance is finished. There is no one left tonight to protect yourself from or present yourself to. Just you, just this room, just this particular darkness, just this breath. And somewhere in the releasing, in the letting go of the held tension of the day, you will feel it. The gratitude that doesn't need a reason. The warmth that rises when the body is finally allowed to simply be. The quiet rightness of being alive, of being here, of being the specific person you are at the specific point in your life where this night has found you. You don't have to manufacture this feeling. You don't have to summon it or create it or earn it. It is already there. It has been there all evening, waiting patiently beneath the thoughts and the memories and the gentle movement through the landscape of your life, waiting for exactly this moment of stillness and openness and permission. Feel it rising now, slow and warm and entirely without effort. The gratitude of having lived, of having loved, of having survived the hard parts and appreciated the beautiful parts and continued forward through all the parts that were simply ordinary and necessary and quietly, completely enough. This is yours. You earned it not by doing anything right, but simply by being here, by continuing, by being the remarkable, ordinary, entirely specific person that only you could ever have been. The people you've loved are woven into you so completely that they will never fully leave. This is something you understand in your body tonight in a way that pure thought cannot quite achieve. The understanding that you are made of other people, that every person who ever truly reached you left something structural behind, something load-bearing, something that became part of how you hold yourself up. Think of one person whose love changed the architecture of who you are. Maybe it was someone from very early, someone whose care in your childhood installed a foundation you've been standing on ever since, without always knowing it was there. A steadiness in you, a basic belief in your own worthiness of love that came from being loved well by someone in those early years when everything about who you would become was still being assembled. Maybe it was someone who loved you in your most difficult season, who stayed when leaving would have been entirely understandable, who saw you at your least composed, your least admirable, your least lovable, and chose you anyway, not because you had earned it, but because that is what real love does. It chooses through the difficult seasons, rather than only in the easy ones. Maybe it was someone whose love surprised you, someone you didn't expect to matter as much as they did, someone who came into your life without announcement and left it changed in ways you're still discovering. The love that arrives without planning is often the most permanently rearranging. It finds spaces in you that you didn't know were empty and fills them so completely that you can no longer remember what you were like before. These loves are in you tonight. They are part of what makes this night possible, part of what makes the quiet gratitude real rather than performed. Because you have been truly loved, you know what love is. Not as an abstraction, not as a concept, but as a lived experience, as something that actually happened to your actual self in the actual world and left evidence that nothing can erase. You're not alone in this room tonight, even if no one else is physically present. You are full of the people who have loved you, full of the impressions they made, full of the ways they saw you that changed how you saw yourself, full of their voices, their faces, the particular ways they occupied space near you that you would recognize anywhere, in any dream, in any late-night memory that rises when the house is quiet. They are here, in whatever form the people we love occupy, after time and distance and sometimes loss have done what they do. They are here in you, in the person you became because of them, in the love that flows through you toward other people, which is in some part their love continuing, moving forward through you, going out into the world wearing your particular version of it. Love doesn't end. It changes form. It transforms. It becomes part of the structure of the person who received it and moves forward in the world through that person's living. This is the closest thing to permanence that the world offers. This is the answer that the late night provides to the question of what lasts. What lasts is this: what you gave, what you received, what you became through the giving and receiving, what you passed forward. Your breathing is very slow now, so slow, so even, so completely automatic that you barely have to acknowledge it as something you're doing. The body simply breathes and you are simply here inside the breathing, and there is very little distance between the two things. Your limbs are heavy in the best possible way, the heaviness that is not burden but release, the heaviness of a body that has finally been given permission to set down everything it's been carrying and simply rest. Your hands are still. Your shoulders have dropped away from your ears. Your jaw has unclenched. Your eyes are closed, or nearly closed, and the darkness behind them is peaceful, personal, entirely yours. The room around you is very still. The house is quiet in the particular way it gets in the deepest hours of the night. Not silent, exactly, but settled. Everything in its place. Everything still. The sounds that remain are soft and steady, the gentle white noise of a world at rest, and they require nothing from you except to be heard and let go and heard again. You are safe here, completely safe, not in the urgent defensive way that word sometimes means, but in the deeper sense, in the sense of being exactly where you are supposed to be, in the sense of the night holding you rather than threatening you, in the sense of the dark being full of rest rather than full of danger. Nothing is required of you right now, nothing at all. The world will continue without your supervision for these hours. It has always been able to. You have always been able to release it into its own continuation for the hours of sleep and take it back in the morning. And it has always been there, unchanged in the essential ways, waiting for you, reliable in this one small way that matters enormously. You can let go now, fully, completely, without reservation, without keeping one part of yourself alert and braced for whatever might arrive. There is nothing arriving tonight. There is only this: the room, the dark, the breath, the warmth, the slow, sweet weight of a body at rest and a mind finally, gratefully letting go. Tomorrow will come in its own time. It will arrive the way all mornings arrive. Gradually, a lightning at the edge of things, sound returning before light, the world assembling itself outside your window with its usual quiet efficiency, the day organizing its hours before you've opened your eyes. And when tomorrow comes, you will meet it with whatever you have, with the rest this night has given you, with the quiet perspective that sleep restores, with the gratitude that the late hours installed, which will still be there in the morning, softer and less visible in the daylight, but present, always present, underneath everything. You will carry into tomorrow the understanding that the ordinary is extraordinary, that the small goods of a day compose something larger than they appear to in the moment, that the people you love are worth the full weight of your attention and your time and your presence, that you have survived everything that has ever asked to break you, and you are still here, still breathing, still capable of this quiet and sustaining awareness of what it means to have lived a real life in a real world with real people who are real in their love for you. You will carry forward the understanding renewed by this night that you are enough, that you have always been enough, not in spite of the imperfections and the failures and the seasons when you couldn't find your footing, but including all of those things, because those things are not separate from who you are. They are part of it, the inseparable part, the part that gives the rest of it texture and depth, and the kind of truth that polished versions of a life can never quite achieve. Tomorrow you will live another ordinary day, which is the only kind of day available, and the only kind of day that actually constitutes a life. You will notice some of it, miss some of it. The small goods will come and go, some acknowledged and some not, and at the end of it, you will be here again, in this room, in this dark, in this particular quiet that returns every night like something faithful, like something that knows where you live and finds you without being called. And that will be enough. That will be more than enough. That will be everything. Let your mind go now, not forcefully, not as a command, but as an invitation, as a gentle unclenching of whatever grip the thinking mind still has on the events and the memories and the quiet, beautiful wandering this night has offered. Let all of it soften now from thoughts into something less defined, something more like weather than like words, something that moves through you rather than being held by you. The gratitude is still there. You don't have to hold it consciously to keep it. It will be there in the morning. It will be there when you wake and the first light arrives and the day begins assembling itself around you. It lives deeper than thought, in the body, in the breath, in the part of you that continues all night, while the thinking mind rests. Let the thinking mind rest now. It has worked so faithfully today. It has carried you through the hours. It has solved what needed solving, and remembered what needed remembering, and felt what needed to be felt, and brought you all the way to this moment. It deserves rest as much as the body does. It has earned the darkness and the quiet and the slow dissolution of one thought into the next, into the soft edges of sleep. Let it have that now. Let yourself have that. You have come a long way in your life to arrive at this night. You have traveled through more seasons than you sometimes pause to count. You have loved and lost and built and started again and carried what needed carrying and set down what needed to be released and continued forward through every chapter that arrived, whether or not you were ready for it. And all of that has brought you here, to this specific night, to this quiet room, to this particular darkness that is not empty but full of everything you are and everyone you love and everything the long arc of your life has made you into. You are here. You are breathing. You are held by the night and the warmth and the stillness that surrounds you. You are grateful in the deep and wordless way that only comes when you have stopped performing and simply arrived inside your own life, for the fact that you are here at all, for the fact that you made it, for the fact that after everything, after all of it, you are still here to feel this. Rest now. The night has you. The dark has you. Everything you love and everyone who loves you is woven into the person you are lying in this bed right now, and that person is enough, more than enough, entirely, completely, quietly enough. Close your eyes, if they are not already closed. Let the last of the tension in your body dissolve into the warmth beneath you. Let the breath be whatever it needs to be, as slow as it wants to go, as quiet as the room itself. You are safe. You are loved. You are here. And that is the whole of it. The beginning and the end of the quiet gratitude of late nights. Simply that you are here. Simply that you made it to this night. Simply that the dark is gentle and the room is warm and the long, full, imperfect, completely real life you have lived has brought you to this moment of rest. Let sleep find you now. It has been waiting patiently, as it always does, just at the edge of all this remembering and reflecting and feeling. It is here. It is ready. It will take good care of you through the remaining hours and return you rested to the morning. Go gently into it, without resistance, without holding on to anything that needs to be set down, with the full, quiet, deeply earned peace of someone who has lived honestly and loved truly and arrived at the end of this particular day at exactly the right place. The fires die down, the stories settle, and the world grows still. Let your thoughts drift away like embers on the wind. Good night. You've journeyed far through time tonight. Now it's time to journey into dreams. Close your eyes, breathe, and let sleep find you.